You're watching another Industry Thought Leader Masterclass, brought to you by Industry Thought Leader Academy. Welcome. Now, on to the class.
And welcome to another masterclass. I have an awesome guest with me today, and we're going to be diving all into what makes people click and convert. Now, as we know, smart marketers, that's you, understand that content marketing is a smart and economical way to create awareness, to build credibility, and to ultimately build your profits. But if you're like most people, you're frustrated by how difficult it is to get people to click and convert in this digital age. So today on the show, Sue Sutcliffe, who is an expert, a thought leader in this area, she is going to speak about and share how to get your content noticed by the right people, your ideal clients. She's going to talk about how to discover content that your ideal prospects is going to find valuable, the key elements of an effective sales page, what your current content marketing plans and why they're delivering mediocre results, three critical things that you need to master to increase the number of times people click and convert, and what you need to do to increase conversion and ROI from all of your marketing content efforts. It's going to be a jam-packed masterclass today. Sue, welcome.
Well, thanks for having me, Annemarie. I'm excited to be here.
One of the websites that I have often referred to when we're talking about the amount of content that is shared on a daily basis is Internet Stats Live, I believe it is. And when you go to that web page, it tracks in real time the number of websites that are being added, the number of tweets, the number of videos. And in some instances, it is talking in the number of billions and billions of pieces of content. So I love that you're speaking today about how we can really attract the attention of our ideal client, but not only that, have them take an action, have them click, have them convert. Let's talk about some of the things in the context that you're going to share today, but what would be one of the biggest mistakes? Let's get that on the table, because often we don't know what we're doing, but what we are doing is actually inhibiting us from increasing the clicks and conversions. So what would you say is the biggest mistake that you see?
For me, I believe that people want it all, and we automatically think about the world and perceive the world from our eyes, from our lens. But the fact of it is we have to niche. We have to focus on a segment that we can own, one that we're comfortable with talking to. It's not good enough to try to go after the world. You have to figure out exactly who it is that you're going after. And then you have to look at the world from their eyes. I think that's the most critical mistake that I see people making. They're talking about content that they find exciting. They're using industry speak that they get, but their clients don't necessarily get. And so for me, that's got to be the biggest mistake, is actually getting, really niching down and understanding who it is that you're going after. I guess that's number one. Number two would be knowing what you want, because I see a lot of people going out there and they're trying to get everything, but this is not an advertising tool. It's a case that you're trying to build relationships with the right people. And so when you're out talking to people, traditionally, you have a profile in mind of the ideal client, but on social media, we go out there and we go, oh, we want to please everyone. Well, you can't please everyone. You really need to speak with one voice. I don't think there's ever been a time in the world where everything's been so transparent as it is today. I remember when I was a little girl and I was in the playground, and what I did is I played with my friends, and I might have swore a bit. It was cool to swear. And so, I would swear, and it would be like I was the big girl on campus. When I was playing in my mom and dad's backyard, I didn't swear. Maybe if I swore quietly. So I was able to switch hats. Mm. And when I was at my grandma's house, I never swore, right? I never swore because I knew I'd get a clap across the side of the head. And And so people forget that they're talking to the world and that it is transparent, but they're also, we come from a world where we're trying to please everyone, and you really just can't. I think actually on the last broadcast I watched of yours, you were talking about niching, and how you really have to, focus on talking to one person, and that's your persona. You have to be able to understand exactly who it is you're going after, and then focus on building relationships with them.
Yeah.
It's not a lot different than traditional, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. One of the things that I'm sure that you've experienced from, clients and your community is that, okay, so we understand we need to niche, but the steps that they're taking, or the information that they're gathering, especially now with so much more noise and clutter, they don't go deep enough, do they? They may have a client avatar, which is, this, and this, but if you really want to get your content noticed by the right people, you've got to focus on a lot more of the psychographics rather than, say, demographics and psychographics. Share a little bit more about what are some of the pieces of content that you know is not only important but absolutely crucial for adding to content, adding for sales pages, all of that good stuff. But what are some of those content pieces that we're just not getting enough of because we're not diving deep enough into? Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. Well, number one, we have to get their attention. So we need an image or some sort of media, whether it be a podcast, whether it be a video or an image. We need something to stop the thumbs. And also in that category also would be a killer headline, right? Just like when you're going through the cash register at the grocery store, they get you with those headlines. So, we have to be really, having a strong copywriter on your team is always good. If it's not you, and by all means, I mean, we've never been living in a time where it's been easier and more cost effective to do A/B testing. I mean, now we can do A, B, C, D, E, F, G testing. So, so I think number one, we have to get their attention, right?
Yeah.
We have to get their attention. But I think, secondly, we have to understand that they're, that the people that we're going after. I mean, every time I write a marketing piece, I look at my persona. I've got this Debbie do-it-yourselfer. That's my persona, and I look at it to kind of get inside their head, because I'm not that person. I'm a bit geeky. Debbie do-it-yourselfer is doing it herself, but she's a bit confused. She's a bit frustrated, and she certainly doesn't get the geek word. I ran a brand agency for 25 years, and I don't know how, everybody would come and they'd say, I need a website, or I'm having a problem with a website. And someone said, I should talk to you. And really, we have to be responsible and translate that, because although those are the words they're using, the fact of it is they want to grow their business.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, we need to understand them that deep. We need to understand not only that they want to grow their business, but why do they want to grow their business? We really have to know their why. Is it because you're concerned you're not going to be able to retire? Is it because you want more vacations? And what's your life like? Are you juggling parents and kids and grandkids? Are you a career person? Like, that tells you a lot about when to get to them. You can have amazing content, but if your timing is not good, you're not going to get there. Or if you put it in the wrong spot, it's not good. So it all starts with that ideal client.
Yeah, I could not agree with you more, Sue. And I think that's probably where we need to spend a lot more time in understanding who he or she is. Every single one of us is a consumer as well. And there's different systems, if you will, systems and processes that we follow to gather the information that we need to be able to make a decision. And so often we don't spend enough time in gathering. And I love that you said, there is a process. And I've boiled it down to three different stages of the buyer's journey. There's really awareness stage, there's the consideration stage, and then there's the decision stage. And as you said, which is so correct, we might be providing information that really should be more in the decision stage. We haven't gotten to know, like, and trust, or built that know, like, and trust. We haven't connected to our ideal client's why and incorporated the language that she goes, oh, it's like she read my mind. That copy was just me. And when we can get that way, then we don't, we're not having to send out so much more content, because every single piece of content speaks specifically to that person. And that really speaks into, how to get your content noticed by the right eyes. You need to understand who he or she is and how to discover content that your ideal prospect will find valuable. Then start delivering value into those specific topics. Talking about discovering content, what are some things you want to share around this? Maybe some techniques that you've used to really help us narrow down so that we can come up with a great title and come up with great content that we know is going to connect.
Well, I go back to sales 101, right? A good salesperson understands that it's all about their customer. So, if you've been in business for any given amount of time, you have a customer base. And I'm not suggesting that you talk to all of them, but certainly the top 20%. I mean, if you go by the Pareto rule, the top 20% of your clients will bring 80% of your revenue. So, so I suggest that you speak to that top 20% and pay attention to them. One of the things I do is I'll call my top 20% of my clients and I'll say, you know what, I just love working with you. And I'd love more people like you. And I ask them questions. I don't bother with the other clients because, if they come my way, that's great, but I want more of the good ones. And when you think about those clients, a lot of times when I'm talking to them, I always have a pen in my hand because I write down the words they use. In the old days, I used to say, okay, so you use my services and you were happy and I want more people like you. Tell me something. If you didn't know me, what would you have looked in the yellow pages, for that generation? What would you have typed into Google when you were looking? If you didn't know me, if I wasn't here, what would you type in? And it's interesting what you get when you ask those questions, Another approach that I did is I did a focus group, again, with my top 20% of my clients. And I brought them together with my business plan for the next year. I brought all my marketing pieces and all that stuff. And I said, I bought them lunch, and at first I thought, oh, how can I do this? There's so much money at that table. But, they all thanked me because they were connecting with other people that are at that same caliber level.
Yes.
And that was so insightful. I said I would do it again, and I haven't. I really am due to do that again.
That's a brilliant idea. I mean, there's nothing better than to have ideas and what you're going to share the following year and get feedback from clients, existing clients who've already had an experience. They're going to give you the indication. And what I love about this too is how many times have you heard of a business owner who is assumed, done a little bit of research online, that kind of thing, and assumed that a course or content was going to really be the thing. This is going to go viral, and then there's crickets. And so, brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that the more we talk and communicate with that top 20% of the clients, also just, communicating, making sure to take care of those people. And I know that sounds like it sounds like it might be a bit off topic, but it really isn't, because if I go to their spaces, which is good for them, and I'm communicating with them, guess what? They know more people like them. Yes. And I just, I grew my business by referrals, and I love that, because when somebody's referred from a good friend, because my clients they're friends. I mean, I don't think of them as clients and contacts. I think of them as new friends. And, and so once you make a friend and they're referred from a friend, you've got a really good quality person there. And I think, you know what, as entrepreneurs, we have the gift to be able to surround ourselves with whoever we wish. So in my mind, I'm choosing.
Yeah. What I love about what you've just said, and I think many people, businesses, really don't see the value of, the customer. Once someone clicks and converts into a customer, the relationship takes on a whole new opportunity for you. So how you relate, how you engage, how you interact, do you make it easy? Are you following up? Because if you make that entire experience so incredible, they are going to be the ambassadors. They're going to be the spokespeople for your business. I love how you've said that. And I think we often look at the beginning of the stage. How do I get more reach? How do I get more clients? But you've got more opportunity to get more clients like your existing clients if you do what you've said now, but also make sure that you're really looking after them. I love that. So important. Let's dive into some of the practicalities then of some of the key elements of effective sales pages. Now, I know that you could probably do a whole workshop in a whole day on this.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's so many elements to that. But what would you see as some of the common mistakes that we're doing with our sales pages today?
Again, verbiage. I don't know that people are really nailing the fact that and getting out of their own geek.
Yeah.
For me, it's geek. For other people, it might be industry speak. But I think, honestly, I guess there's a lot. I mean, there's distractions, right? Like, every page should have a purpose. And it doesn't really matter where they land. I almost think that we should look at all the pages on our website almost as landing pages with a purpose. So if they arrive on this page, what do I want them to do? Number one. And so being really clear on that. And then number two, making the path of least resistance, the path to your door. So if you want them to click the button, then make the button nice and bright and big, and use caps because it comes across better, and make sure it's a little bit bigger. And like I say, if you can get the navigation gone, so it's nice and clear. I think people aren't reading nowadays, so I think we have to, keep it short and succinct. I think we need bullet points, and they say that we have less attention than a goldfish, so we have to be fast. And I think there's two things that somebody needs to see before they're gonna click, and I guess it depends on how you set up. I know you say funnel's a dirty word, and I kind of get that too, because a lot of people use the word funnel and it's been misused. But when you're driving them through that, through the sales process, depending on how you do it, you have to build trust. And I think there's two things that you have to do for e-commerce in my mind. I mean, there's two real things that you got to nail. You can't blow the trust factor. Right? You can't break the trust. I mean, they even if they were referred, they're still looking at you through the screen, and that's a divide. And so that's a number one thing. And the second thing is, you've got to make it easy, frictionless. And if I went back now and you asked me that question again and said, what's the number one mistake? I think I would change my mind, because I think most people that are doing social media aren't ready to do it. Yeah. They're amplifying and getting a whole bunch of eyeballs on a website that's not ready to convert, and it doesn't have the strategy.
And I would do the same with podcasts, because people hear, you need to get content out there. You need to get your website up there and get it out there. And one of the posts that I'm sharing next week is content for the content's sake of only getting out there and making more impact. If your goal is to be on all platforms more consistently, to outbeat your competitors, you've already lost, because you need to have, what is the purpose? What is the purpose of this article? What's the call to action? Or are there so many confusing things in there and buttons and whistles and everything that people go, oh, no, I'm not going to continue on any further. And that's so true. And I mean, now we carry these devices around with us, so we need to be mindful of, is my website able to be engaged with and consumed on a mobile device? I mean, how do things look on a smaller screen versus a larger screen? That's consideration too, isn't it?
It's huge. And you know, I talk about you know, when I'm doing workshops and seminars and stuff like that, I'll say them, I'll bring the phone out and I'll say, well, is your website responsive? And how is your website on mobile? Oh, my website's responsive. Well, that's a different question. Yeah, it's responsive, but does it work on mobile? Because I find every single website that I go through looks, you know, I go through it on the computer. And then when you actually go through it like a consumer, the majority of people will come through your phone, you know, most businesses, and you actually go through it. Because of the way it responds, it doesn't necessarily communicate the message clearly. And again, going back to that trust factor, I mean, and making it frictionless. Both, like, I think people just don't understand. And I think even in the world of web design, I mean, there's all sorts of different quality web people. And I'm not here to bash anybody by any means. And I certainly made more mistakes than anybody back in the day. But I think it's a huge problem in digital marketing, because people that don't do their own websites hire somebody to do it because they don't know. But they don't know what they don't know. So they don't know how to hire. They don't know how to hire somebody that's good. So I created a test, you know, because I get all those, I go to these workshops and I usually do a bit of research. I find out kind of who's got the websites, who needs help, and then they're the ones that are nodding and saying, oh yeah, my website's responsive. Oh yeah. And then I think, okay, well, so let's just look at this page here together. Like, maybe we could just kind of have a quick look at this and just, so what do you want them to do? Oh, okay. So where would they do that? And you know what? That tests, like, that's the litmus test. You know, you said awareness, consideration, to decision, right? 3 different stages of the buyer's journey. So I always say to people, you know what? We don't have all day, but we have a minute. So why don't you tell me, if I was a magician and I waved my magic wand and I could deliver 100 perfect clients in front of your website right now, 100, what would they do? And so the person usually says, well, they would buy this, or they'd buy, no, they can only do one thing. What do you want them to do? And they say, okay, so I want them to buy this. And then when you look at that process, okay, so who is that buyer? Like, so you go to the website and you go, okay, so we're going to look at this as if they're ready to make a decision. Okay, so we go through, and how do they do that? Okay, and so now they know they have a problem, and they're considering all sorts of different solutions, and they go on your website. Now you're not ready. And so most people aren't ready, and that's the truth, right? They don't. So if you're listening to the show today and you've got a website right now, I'm going to suggest that chances are the majority of people going to your website are going on there via their phone. And there's all sorts of different kind of phones. So just pick one thing you want that person to do, the most important thing, and then look at your website from those 3 stages of the buyer's journey. Do you have something for them? Are you ready for them? Because if not, I honestly think you're wasting your time with social media.
Yeah. Like, it's so interesting you should say that. And, you know, often we put ourselves under so much immense pressure. And the fact that I'm really speaking into, you're not yet ready. It can take months to finally get to understand exactly what makes people, what compels them to click and convert by the offering. And often we need to start that relationship off. People aren't just going to buy, particularly, many of the people that are listening and watching today are service-based businesses. They're experts in their fields. They're thought leaders, change makers. So many of the programs they offer are transformational. And therefore we know to get a transformation, there's some time commitment to that. And there's some good pricing around that because of the value that they offer. And so someone's not going to invest in a 5-figure, program or a 4-figure program, depending what you're offering. And so there needs to be that relationship building. Now that takes a little bit of time to define that niche, to know who that ideal client is. And then what are some pieces of the content that we can create that engages, that draws them into that next level of, well, I'm considering doing work with you. Let me just try out some of the things that you're doing. Okay, I've gone through that now. That's the decision. No one really spends that time, do we? Because of I'm calling out the BS that we're told. create a course, launch it, create your email list, and press send, and the money will pour in. Well, no, it won't. It won't. Is it? No, it won't. It just won't. You've got to take the time to do that. It will, but it takes time to build and know who that ideal client. And when you spend the time and you really speak into what he or she is struggling with, that is when you can take them on that journey and build that know, like, and trust. Absolutely. So before we move on to the next, what would be one final insight? We're talking about websites, and again, we're only just scratching the surface on a lot of this. We're going to share with you how to connect with Sue, because many of you are going, okay, I can see I need to get some more support in this area. But what would be one other thing that you want to share around the website that people may not be aware of with their existing website?
There's two things I think that people need to do as soon as they can. And I don't see it a lot. There's the early adopters that will buy everything, right? They'll buy the phone. They'll buy all the latest gadgets. I mean, we all know these people. I'm not one of those people, by the way, but we know those people. And that's great that you've got, it was a very small segment that will do that. The majority of us want to be referred. We want to see testimonials. And I know there's a lot of businesses out there that have testimonials. They're just not leveraging them. And they want to try before they buy. So, you have an offering that's 5,000. That's a big leap. Even if I know you and like you, it's a big leap for me to say, okay, I'll give you $5,000. No problem. I'll just, nothing. But I love, one of the things you did on your website with your podcast. Are you ready to podcast? So you're giving somebody away something as value. And they need to know that. So you're helping them. So if they don't check off the boxes, they're thinking, oh, Annemarie, thank you. Thank you. Now I can kind of get that ready. And you've built, you've touched the heart. And I think social media is all about heart. I really do. I think
gone is the if you're not bringing heart and real value, people will see through, because we're tired, aren't we? We're at a stage now, I think, where we're tired of the BS. We see through it, and we're all about that relationship, the human to human connection. We've heard it before on many other resources, but I think we're at that stage because of all the misinformation and the noise and clutter that we see happening online. And that's one way to really stand out, is do the opposite of what everyone is doing, bring that human connection in and the value. And that will lead people to build that trust, because of the fact that, you're consistently bringing that value for them. Let's talk about, and that really speaks beautifully, I think, into the next piece that you want to talk about around current content marketing plans. If they're delivering mediocre results, it may very well be because what you're sharing is really not giving someone a breakthrough or really aha. You're very much saying what everyone else is saying in the industry, isn't it? You haven't differentiated yourself.
Yeah, I think that's there's so many problems with content now. Great, brilliant content, but just packaged wrong. A lot of people say you should, they're sharing stuff. And they're really proud of it. And I did this, and here you go. And that's awesome. But at the end of the day, it's not engaging me. Everybody is saying, here, have this. And I think you've got to get the heart across. I think we need to start conversations, no different than a traditional salesperson understands that it's not about selling. It's about helping people, looking for opportunities to help people. And as a result, you never have to sell anything. You just build relationships. And so when you've created that beautiful piece of content, rather than throwing it up there and saying, here, you can have this, maybe you want to say, I did this piece of content. I think it's almost ready. What do you think? How can I get this better? Engage people. Ask them what they think. I did my profile shots recently. I never ever like my profile shots. So I thought, what the heck? Why am I picking this? And I put it up there in my group, and I said, okay, so here's some profile shots. Which ones do you like? I would never have picked the one they picked.
Really?
Hey, like that, we look at our body modularly, So, but I think that's the key. I mean, we got to, I think people, especially people that are our age and older, they tend to think that this is just another advertising tool. It's not. It's a space where we can meet people and socialize. And through that, we can help people with the beautiful content that we create. We can help them by introducing them we can help them by going over and engaging on their pages. And I think by the nature of doing that, everything else just flows. Assuming you've got your back end ready, right?
Absolutely. Because that could be, for some of you, it's probably a good thing that you're not getting a huge influx of visitors because the back end wouldn't be able to support it, and then you become almost, what's that saying, the victim of your own success, because all of a sudden there's this huge leap and bound. So sometimes in the waiting and as you're growing and developing, there's real lessons as you continue to build that out. So that's great. Something else that you said, which I think is so important, and from a brand aspect, because that's kind of what I call my my trade. If you're not clear, obviously what we've talked about in your ideal client, but if you're not clear on you, the experience that you want to create, the approach. So if you were to talk to 3 different people and they were to describe the experience, how you made them feel, how they were after they spent some time, maybe listening to a podcast, experiencing a live, even in person, if that's not the same, if that's not predictable, then you need to spend time in getting clear on that too, because I think there's a lot of components and a lot of people don't spend time diving deep into that. Because when you talked about the heart and soul, when you bring that who you are wrapped into the message, integrated within that's when you really can carve out the space. I talk about, if you want to become that commodity of one, that's not my term, but if you want to become that commodity of one, or that person that there's no other person that's offering in your space, you need to speak to that audience of one, and but you need to get clear on yourself and bring that through into all of the content pieces that you are creating. Would you agree with that?
Most definitely. I think brand is such a key element, and it's got to be congruent across everything. Mm-hmm. People traditionally, when they think about brand, they think about a logo or they think about colors, but it's really, like you said, it's about how you make people feel. Remember that quote by Maya Angelou? People will forget what you say, but they'll never forget how you make them feel. Yeah. And I just think I just think that says it all, because you're either going to, when someone experiences your brand, no matter whether it's on a Facebook page or looking at your material or hearing your podcast, they're going to feel something. Mm-hmm. And it's either going to be good to them or it's not. And I'm not saying no matter how hard you try, you're not going to please everyone. But going back to that point, that we have to be prepared to stand up and be okay for those haters that are out there, because there's going to be haters, and you made it when the haters start coming out. Yeah. And we have to be real, I think it comes with age, because it certainly did with me. I certainly wasn't this woman, even 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. But now I know who I am, and I know what I bring, and I know who I want to serve. And so when those things come together, oftentimes it's magic. And although I could probably, in fact, I'm sure I could connect with anybody, I don't want to connect with anybody. I want to connect with a certain group of people. Yeah. And I think when that's there, when you get down to that niche where you're saying, okay, this is who I want to surround myself with, all of a sudden I'm having a conversation with you. Yeah. And when you get to my website, you're going to go, she gets me. And when you see my Facebook page, you're going to go, oh, I was just going to ask for that, or I was going to look for that. And I think that's I think that's the ultimate goal. I mean, I'm not anywhere near perfect. It's a continual process. And I guess very similar to you, probably the target keeps moving. The digital keeps moving around us. So, change, we're constantly changing, and so that adds another little bit of a challenge, as does the world, right? Because all the people we're marketing to, the world's changing like so fast now. But Yeah, it's one of my number one goals, though. I think that it has to be around any marketing. It's got to be your brand.
Yeah,
So
it's so
yeah,
so important. Something that you said too that I just want to speak into before we move on to the three critical things, and some of them you've probably already spoken about today. But I think for the people who are listening and watching, particularly around this industry thought leader, there, and you talked about confidence because of the years of experience. And I often have conversations with people who say to me, and it really breaks my heart on their behalf, is they say, Annemarie, how can I compete with these young people that are coming through that were pretty much born with this in their hand? And I said, how can you compete? You don't need to compete. And that the category of one, not the commodity of one, because commodity we kind of see as, underpriced and so forth. But I said, there is brilliance, and there is influence, and there are insights and hindsight and hands-on experience and expertise that only time has been able to develop in you, that is matched and married and integrated with the aptitude and all of that. No one can bring that to the journey and to the story like you can. So I think when we start to look at, there should be, especially when we're looking at building our reputation as that thought leader, or that person that is the thought after leader in your category, there is no competition, because no one has your stories. No one's overcome the challenges. No one has had the highest highs and the lowest lows that you've overcome and gotten to build the solutions and the strategies and the tactics and the mindset that you have, that you now can teach and impart to others, unless they're you. And no one is you, unless, of course, you've got a twin who's gone through exactly the same life experiences, which, obviously not. So when we start shifting our thinking to, that is what I have to bring to the conversation, that is what we have to bring to the strategies that you've taught, it opens up the path for us, and to be, to not have any competitors, because no one can really bring what we bring to the table. And then we don't have to change. All we need to change is maybe adapt how we're sharing our message. But the core message itself, I think, is because our ideal clients is looking for the solution, that we can create. Anyway, I just thought that I would share that, because how often, I'm sure that you hear that too. How am I going to, compete with everyone else? Well, let's have a look at what makes you unique. So you're not competing with anyone else. You're just a standalone, in your own industry. Let's have a look at three critical things that we need to master to increase the number of times people click and convert. So this would be on our website, but also maybe on social as well.
Yeah, most definitely. So to get people to click and convert, number one, we have to get their attention. Right. We have to get their attention, which means we have to, have some imagery. We have to have some media and a headline that's going to really grab them. Right. Something that says, hey, that's for me. And typically that comes down to the image, because you're going so fast on your phone, so they say a thumb stopping image. It could be a video as well, but you do need something to stop them. And you have to be in the right spot, obviously, because if you're not at the right spot, the right time, the right place, it's not going to hit them. Like, for example, if you gave me the perfect offer right now, it'd be wonderful, except for I'm not working right now. So timing is everything. And the other thing is, we have to be really aware of everyone else's space, because I think instinctively we see the world and we think about things through our lens. And we really have to understand that when we're marketing and when we're communicating with people, it's really all about them if we want to convert, right? So, we really have to use their language. We have to understand their timing. Their holidays, for example, I'm not sure what it's like in Australia. In Canada, it's very multicultural, which means that, it's not good enough just to be for me to be sensitive about my holidays. I also have to be sensitive about other people's holidays, and their religious holidays or whatever are very important to them. So timing is really key. I think it really comes down to relevance at the end of the day. We have to be visible. We have to be valuable, so that they are going to find something. And we have to make it easy for them to get to our website. Those are really the three things. We have to make the path of least resistance the path to the website. And when they get there, or the sales page, wherever we're driving them, and when we get there, it just has to be clear and intuitive, because really our competition has never been closer than one click away. And that's what they are now all over the world.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what you do. There's lots of people that do it. And I love what you said about the competitor piece too, because I think that there's a confidence that comes with age, but there's also an unlimited supply of customers. And somebody that resonates with you might not resonate with me, and vice versa. Like, we all have our own personalities. And when you talk about trust, that's why it's so hard to find a husband, because we're looking for someone we can trust. And then everything comes from there. And I think it's the same with someone you partner with online, right? So there's tons and tons of clients out there.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean no matter how small the market is.
Yeah. So believe that. As you were saying that, it reminded me of something else, which often is a conversation, around this whole positioning and around your message and all of the things that we're talking about today is that, we often see those shock and awe headings, or sometimes what they call, the bro marketing, where it really is that maverick archetype, if you will. And people think, well, the images or the titles that I have to shock people. But I think from a thought leadership point of view, it doesn't necessarily. But if you start challenging the status quo, and sometimes, to be that disruptor, to be the change maker, to be the difference maker, it can be the slightest shift in things, isn't it? It can be, how are you doing things differently? And if your ideal client, that they're so overwhelmed and it's taking them so much time, but with one simple step, you're doing something quite differently, you're able to get them the results that they want, and in a much more genuine way, in the style and approach that they value. That can very much be your differentiator, isn't it? But unless you know who your ideal client is, what they really want, and who you are, it's hard to really bring that to life across any content piece. Yes.
Yes. And you have to be brave. It takes being brave to stand in those shoes and say, this is who I am. And people are afraid. I find a lot of people afraid of niching because they're afraid that they're going to run out of customers. And I tell them, the more genuine you are, the more you're you, the more you'll get the right people. And there's an unlimited amount of people. So I think that bro marketing works for some bros. I had a copywriter. He hit me up for some, because I still get, from the brand days running the brand agency, I still get a lot of people saying, hey, do you know somebody? Yeah. And there was this one guy hitting me up for copy. Finally he was a bro marketer. And it's like, what kind of content is this? Yeah. This is not for our persona at all. No. And I'm sorry, I'm not even presenting that to the client. So we have to talk about this.
Yeah, and it's so true, because I think the pendulum has swung the other way now, isn't it? That we see it a mile away and it feels icky, because guess what? It is. And this is something that I wrote about in this week's, some of the content that I'm sharing, when we're looking at building influence, when we're looking at becoming that influential person. And Simon Sinek, I quoted him, where he said, well, there are two ways to influence. You can do it in a very manipulative way, which is, I would categorize as bro marketing, as of the shock and awe kind of, be controversial. You can be controversial, but in the other way, through inspiring influence. And I know, without a shadow of the doubt, I want to inspire influence. I don't want to manipulate it. And we can see manipulation a mile away, and that's what you don't want to do. So because there's two things in the relationship that you're talking about, click and convert. We click, but there's no way we're going to convert if what we're met with is so confronting that it's like, because you can make an impact, but what impact do you want to make? Compel or repel. And I think that a lot of the stuff that you're talking about, increasing conversion and the ROI from your content marketing, really ask yourself honestly and get feedback. Are you being compelled by that, or in some instances, being repelled? Because what we do is we try and look at what other people are doing and saying, now, it might work for them, but it's not necessarily for us. What are some other, do you see that happening too? Are people still unfortunately trying to do these manipulative tactics?
Most definitely. I mean, sales 101, marketing 101, this stuff worked for years and years. But now that we're on social and we've never been more bombarded by advertising and these gimmicks. People, although it'll still work for some people, it's just not. I think it's kind of out of fashion for the most part. I think we're tired of. I mean, if you look at Netflix, I mean, people are used to watching movies without ads, and so I totally think that the time has come to make some changes, and I think it's really challenging for new marketers because they're trying to do it themselves. We're living in a do-it-yourself world. And they go out there looking for help, and there's just so many different opinions on things. And I come from an old-time marketing background, but one of the things that I'll never forget is my dad's a very, very nice man, and I don't remember him. I remember him getting mad at my principal because he didn't take care of something properly, and I thought, whoa, that my dad looks like 10 feet tall, and he's just. And the only other time you'd get mad is if somebody would interrupt dinner. And then, when they were selling encyclopedias, when I was younger, they used to go door to door selling encyclopedias. And it's no different than when you go to a used car lot to buy a car. They know that they have to go from visible to profitable immediately. It's not comfortable for them. It's not comfortable for us. And it comes across as slimy. And so people, like anything that comes across like that on social media, it's not going to cut it nowadays. But that's still the stuff that's written in these books. I mean, we're still putting out. I don't know what they're teaching in the colleges now, but I know 10 years ago I was still looking at old marketing techniques, and I think it's about relationships. I've said that since before it was cool. Everybody was saying, okay, you just put up the sales page, and it's like, I'm good one by one by one. That works real well for me. Yeah,
that's right. So you can really get behind that. That's right. I have to laugh at dominate the market, annihilate your competition, all of this kind of stuff. And it's like, no. And you can really see, sadly, the people who are trying to adopt those kind of principles and methods. But it's not long lasting at all. And especially when you think for the change makers point of view, be the difference makers, those people who really want to make an impact by being, the difference, making a difference by being the difference. It's so important that you do so with a level of integrity, because it's, it takes years to build a reputation, which can be destroyed overnight. We don't need to look at some of the politicians across every single country, or people in high places. And I think unless we know what that is, we can't bring that to life in every single piece of content. So when we're talking about today, what we're talking about the conversion, the clicking, it is about relationships. It's about humans first. It's leading with integrity. Because when that comes through in the content, you won't even have to worry, as you said, about all of the different things. And you won't have to worry about the tactics and the techniques, because the message itself will draw people in. The honesty, the integrity will bring people forward, when you give them that call to action, that invitation. Look, if this is for you, happy to have a chat. And I think that's what it's all about. I love speaking with like-minded people such as yourself, Sue, because you are breaking through the noise and clutter of all those people, which is sad. There's nothing worse, nothing that angers me more inside and for other people, when they have spent tens of thousands of dollars in empty promises, and they're not able to get their message out because unfortunately they've invested in everything that you've said is a real issue today, and why people aren't getting those conversions, because they're doing all of the things that you said, look, that might have worked 5 years ago, even maybe 2 years ago. I mean, that's how much it's changing now, isn't it? Quite rapidly. We're really about that relationship and that trust, and that's so important. So how can people find out more about you? What are some of the awesome things that you're working on at the moment?
Well, you can find out more about me, Sue Sutcliffe, everywhere, or most popular social media spaces. My website, SueSutcliffe.com, always got lots of stuff going on. And I really enjoyed the chat today. Annemarie, thank you so much for having me.
You are so very welcome. And so again, thank you so very much for listening in. If you're watching the replay, leave a comment. I mean, I'm going to repurpose this, of course, on the podcast. If you have not yet joined our community of change makers, why not? You need to head over, because you'll listen to, and you'll be able to connect actually personally with Sue, podcastingwithpurpose.com/change makers. You can connect with Sue there as well. Leave comments. It's always good to be able to discuss these things after we've gone live, because it can take time, can't it? But it's well worth it, Sue, what you said, to really be able to be so clear. And there's a level of that inner confidence that comes through when you start to speak to your ideal client, because that is when all of a sudden eyes and ears and faces will start to look your way, because you're sharing something, a message that they have been waiting to hear, in a style, in an approach, with the right kind of attitude that you bring to the relationship. And that's when real influence starts to be built in an inspiring way. So thanks once again for coming on the Masterclass.
My pleasure. My pleasure. It was just a lot of fun. Thank you.